Contention. Critique. Conjecture. Conclusion.
The Huddle with corporate cars, saving you thousands on luxury European vehicles.
Good evening to Josie Pagani. Hello, Josie.
Hi, Larry.
And to Cameron Slater from Whale Oil. Hello, Cam.
Hey, Larry.
Josie, the latest poll, this is the TV1 poll, National up 6 points, Greens down 5 points, Labour the same. What are you seeing in that?
Well, there's been a few polls recently, haven't there? And the trend does look like Labour is plateauing, it's static, National's trending up, Greens trending down. That's the really interesting sign there. But I think, look, if I'm looking at Labour and as a Labour person, I would say that this whole strategic approach of kind of coming second and cobbling together a government with the Greens, it always looks cynical and it's risky if your coalition partners start to tank, and that's what's happening here. So, you know, the so-called missing million, the 800,000 who didn't vote, and that's who Labour and David Cunliffe have been after. They're not waiting for Labour to ban Facebook and fizzy drinks. They want to hear an alternative story about the economy. Because if Labour's on the side of people who work for a living, then you've got to start talking to people who work for a living about the things that matter to them.
I think those are fair points, Cam. What do you say? Like the baby bonus didn't work, did it?
The baby bonus was delivered poorly. It looked like it was more welfare for middle class and also extending down to the bludger class. And Josie's absolutely dead right. Labour needs to be talking to working New Zealanders, not to the indigent classes of New Zealand. And that's the real failing of David Cunliffe. And this hope that there's 800,000 voters, we're all going to vote for Labour, is just fanciful.
But I tell you, it's interesting, sorry to interrupt, Cam, but I think it's an interesting point to make that this is not, this doesn't have to be the end of the road here. They don't have to feel hopeless, and the whole talk of some sort of go slow in Labour and so on. I think that, yes, they'll be feeling very demoralised, but they can pick up the pieces. And the way that they do that is, you know, to start saying, well, look, National's going to run on the economy. They're going to say this is a great economic recovery, but we're telling you this is a recovery that's a good story happening to someone else, not you.
They won't do that.
So, you know, they can give... But they can start to say that you know, we've got a vision, an economic recovery that delivers for everyone, not just the few. And they've got to start being disciplined about that. That means stop talking about .com.
You can only do that, Josie, if you do have an economic vision. And it appears that they don't. David Cunliffe has had a holiday. It looks like he's done absolutely nothing on that holiday other than sit on a hill. And he's come back, and bizarrely, they're running the lines around Wellington at the moment that this is a rogue poll because Green voters don't go to National. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that Green voters have abandoned the Greens because of cuddlingkim.com, shonky deals and you know, crying foul over fake racism claims. And they've abandoned the Greens, gone to Labour, and in the meantime, Labour's middle voters, the soft vote in the middle, the ones you need to win the election, have said, well, we're not seeing anything here, and we don't really like the look of the Greens and David Cunliffe, so we'll go and vote for that night.
Josie, we have rogue polls, that's for sure, but there is a trend. The last bunch of polls have shown the same trend, haven't they?
Yeah, I think what's also, when I look at it, Labour's been talking a lot about inequality and poverty, and that's stuff that talks directly to me. You know, I get that. But what they've got to do is they've got to start saying things like, our most prosperous times have always been our most equal times. You know, so yes, the rich get richer, but the gap between the very rich and the rest of us is less, and that's when we're prosperous as an economy. That's when we've got jobs, it's when people can pay the bills, it's when two parents don't have to work their butts off to even get ahead or buy a house. Once they start talking like that, I think, you know, they can still turn it around, and polls do close. So, you know, we're still only February, but they've got to get their act into gear.
We'll be back in a moment. Josie Pagani and Cam Slater on the Huddle. It's 15 to 6.
Asking questions and waiting for answers. It's Larry Williams Drive with ANZ, the bank with more local experts. On NewstalkZB.
Josie Pagani and Cameron Slater on the Huddle. Issue number 2. Cameron, is this David Hay, dumped by the Green Party for a year, but he's out for good. He says he's not going back after challenging Russell Norman. What do you see in this?
Well, this is, again, strange behaviour from the Green Party. It seems that you're not allowed to have differing opinions from what the Politburo have decided that you're allowed to have. and they'll rinse you if you have dissenting opinions. And it's not a very good look for a party that professes to be the most democratic in Parliament to now rinse somebody hard because they've had opposing views. It's very strange behaviour, and the clauses that they've used to get rid of him could equally apply to the behaviour of both Russell Norman and Materia Ture in recent weeks.
Josie?
Yeah, I've never understood why they didn't just let this guy challenge, because Russell Norman would have won by 99.99% votes. So, he had more chance of being the next host of 7 Sharp than he did of replacing Russell Norman. They might as well have let him have a go at it. And then introduce something like a serious, a threshold for any serious challenge so that that doesn't happen again. But instead, they've done possibly the worst thing they could do right now, which is get everybody focused on the Greens again for something negative, and they look churlish. They look, negative and silly. Why say, yes, we're an open democracy, anyone can challenge and we're all equal and we all love each other, but if you do, we'll expel you.
And Cameron, we've got Richard Prebble back leading the charge for ACT, in charge of the campaign anyway. He's pretty formidable, I think.
Well, Richard's an old-school Labour campaigner who then went to the ACT party, probably the sensible part of the Labour Party who went to the ACT party. But Richard has been around the traps. He knows that campaigning is not done on Twitter and Facebook and social media, that campaigning is knocking on doors, talking to people, listening to what they've got to say, and then implementing policy based around those face-to-face meetings. And I'm sure Josie will agree with me on that.
Well, it's these old Labour stalwarts like Jim Anderton, the Yodas of the Jedi warrior kingdom. They know how to go out there and campaign. And it's interesting that, Jim Anderton in Christchurch East, Labour got the best result they've had since Mount Albert in a by-election, because he just goes out there, bangs on doors, knows how to run a campaign and raise money. But the thing is, I look at this and I think, well, have you asked Richard Prebble what he thinks of some of Jamie White's views, for goodness sake? I heard Jamie interviewed by you earlier, Larry. He wants to get rid of state-funded super. He wants to get rid of the government funding for any health care. His personal views that he wants to legalise pay.
He didn't actually say that, Josie. He still wants a pension as a backstop. It's exactly the same thing that Australia's got, isn't it?
Yeah,
Come on.
But in his heart of hearts, he wants the government out of it, and he wants individuals to decide. He's against state marriage, for goodness sake, until the state decides they can legalise polygamy and consenting adults with incestuous relationships. For goodness sake.
Josie, but you're allowed to, we're in this democracy, put ideas up.
Well, you ask him.
I can't be bothered. Sorry, Cam.
My point is, Larry, he's very clever. Right. I admire his...
All right, Cameron.
But, this is what he believes.
Reply, Cameron.
He is a purist libertarian. He's floating ideas. We live in a democracy. Let's get these ideas out there. I happen to agree with him on legalisation of cannabis.
I thought you were going to say I happen to agree with him on polygamy.
Well, nothing would surprise me, Cam.
Hang on a second on polygamy. Anyone who wants more than one mother-in-law deserves it. Come on. What are we worried about here?
Yes, right.
It's ridiculous to have discussions around those fringes, but I think the flat tax rate has merit. And I think that what he's focusing on with superannuation is the fact that the pension is welfare, and we've been too scared to say that in New Zealand for fear of upsetting the greedy oldies. And we do need to recognise that it is welfare, that it is a gold-plated system that we have far too many people taking from, and we just afford it. We need to make those changes, and it's a crying shame the National Party won't make changes to superannuation. But raising the age is just one of the issues that we need to address.
Cameron Slater and Josie Pagani on the Huddle. Sport in just a moment. It's now 8 to 6.